I guess I'm up then.
So I'm Valerie Glynn. I'm the president of the Cranberry Country Chamber of Commerce, and welcome to our chamber and Rockland Trust Speaker Series, How to Run Rockstar Staff Meetings to Get Results, with Ken Barnard. Ken, I know you were with Integrity Construction and Development, and I believe you're with Blue Sky now, but I am going to introduce Itamar to introduce you. Itamar, take it away.
Morning, everybody. Itamar from Rockland Trust. I'm happy to have Ken here this morning. I've known Ken for a few years. I've seen him basically over double his business in a very, very short period of time. And a great contributor for that growth is the way he was running his meetings, the way he was communicating and empowering his employees on a weekly basis. So I think that we're all going to learn a lot this morning from a very interesting way of running a team. So Ken, looking forward to hearing what you have to say. Take it away.
Great. Well, thank you. I was just telling the bigger group, I'm a little nervous. I just got 6 hours of training on how to give better and more engaging Zoom presentations. This is the first presentation that I've given post my training, and it's actually surprisingly nerve-wracking because I have all these things in my head that I'm supposed to be doing. So if I get off track, or if you guys have a question or a comment, I've been told to train my eye on the camera and not look at all of you folks, which I was used to doing. So just somebody speak up if you can't catch my attention. So I think we've known each other, Itamar, for 4 or 5 years. Not only was he my relationship at Rockland Trust, but came to be a great advisor to me in my business. And when he asked me if I had any topics I wanted to speak about, it was only natural to speak about the meeting that we run every week. It was one of the most powerful things that I've ever done as a business owner to really engage my team and to really take it off of my back, pushing things forward. I take no credit whatsoever for this meeting structure. I read a book called Traction by Gino Wickman. I read the book 4 times, and after I really couldn't find a reason not to implement many of the principles from the book, I just sort of said, I'm gonna implement these things in my business. And this meeting structure that I'm about to share with you guys, I believe, is one of the most powerful takeaways from that book. This meeting structure has not only helped my team solve the most important issues, but it's also increased employee engagement and teamwork, which has led to higher productivity, ultimately higher profitability. These meetings are fast-paced. They solve the biggest and most important issues in the organization with none of the tangents that typically occur in many company meetings I ran in the past. At each meeting, every attendee scores the meeting from 1 to 10. If the average score is lower than an 8, the meeting needs to get tweaked until the group's average score is an 8. An 8 is not perfection. An 8 is defined as a productive use of people's time that gives the team benefit, and if they did not hold the meeting, the team would be worse off. You know, everybody has heard the overused business cliche, time is money. Well, I think it's important to quantify that, particularly when you examine the cost of meetings. If an employee's salary average was $75,000 a year, then with burdens and payroll costs, et cetera, that employee costs the company about $50 an hour. My average meetings had 10 people in them. So those meetings had a real cost of about $500 an hour. I never really thought of it that way until I examined how I was running my meetings and I examined the efficacy of my meetings. And once I realized that I was literally a 10-minute tangent was costing me real money, that time is money thing really became real. So my general question to myself was, if meetings cost actual money, why am I running these meetings that are somewhat inefficient, that talk about problems, but don't really solve them? I found myself 3, 4, 6 months later, having my team bring up the exact same problem that we had been talking about for months and months and months. And, I just, after reading this book, I just said, I've got nothing to lose. Let's see if this structure works. One of the things we found is tangents make people feel better, but tangents don't actually solve anything. A 12-minute tangent was costing me $100 in my meetings. So one of the goals is to share with you guys the simple meeting agenda that I use to this day. And now that my team's 50 people, it still works as good as it did for 10. And then at least give you guys the information on the book in case you want to read it and try this for yourself. So now I will look at the screen and see if I didn't lose anybody at that point, or if anybody, there are no questions, I guess I can bring up the meeting agenda, and I'll just walk you through the meeting agenda. And, that's pretty much what I wanted to get through today. So any luck, the share screen will work. And are we seeing an Excel sheet? Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So the meeting agenda is, we run it in Excel. There's other formats to run it. But the first item is the segue. This is a 5-minute section, which we share good news, both personally and professionally. This gets the team out of the day-to-day norm. It's been proven that sharing good news personally, professionally helps set the tone to get into some more beefier and meatier discussions. So it's you just ask your team to come prepared and share some good news. And at first it gets a little awkward, but by the 4th week, I'd say, people loved saying, hey, my son won his soccer game. My daughter had a great basketball game. It doesn't have to be professional, personal or professional good news. From there, you go to the scorecard. Now, the scorecard itself does take time to develop, but the theory behind the scorecard is everybody in the organization should have a number. If people don't know what their outcome is supposed to be, and you're not scoring how they're doing to that outcome, it's very difficult to objectively measure how your people are doing. In the book, Gino says even the person answering the phone who had an objective to answer it by the 3rd ring, they were scoring what percentage of the time the phone was answered before the 3rd ring. So this would take several hours to get into all the different ways you can build a scorecard. But the point is no matter how elaborate your scorecard is, and mine is actually very elaborate, we score 13 key performance indicators, but we only spend 5 minutes in the meeting on the scorecard. Any of the things that are behind goal or any of the KPIs that are off goal become an issue. So what we did in the beginning was we had this elaborate scorecard and we got bogged down, and we would spend a half an hour analyzing and discussing and talking and going on tangents. Definitely not the point of running a crisp meeting. Go over the scorecard in 5 minutes or less so that you can move on to the third agenda item. The third agenda item are called rocks. And rocks are key things that need to occur in the next 90 days in order to advance the company or solve a problem or add something to the company in the 90-day time period. And down here, there's actually a little section, if you slide over on the Excel sheet, to put the rocks. Now, rocks have to be assigned to one person and one person only. It doesn't mean that only one person works on the rock. It just means only one person can own the rock. And I'll give you an example. My team, for a year and a half, just kept saying, we don't have enough plumbers. We don't have enough plumbers. We don't have enough plumbers. I would go out and I would credential and get the insurance paperwork, and I would onboard new plumbers, only to find my team not use them because they were used to the 3 plumbers that we used. So for a year and a half, we don't have enough plumbers. We don't have enough plumbers. Well, we changed the rock to Ken's job in the next 90 days is to get a minimum of 2 new plumbers into the company properly credentialed. Matt's rock was to use the new plumbers in the next 90 days. And when you have that simple clarity, there was no ability, either Ken found 2 new plumbers or Ken didn't, and either Matt used the 2 new plumbers or he didn't. So it's a very basic example, but rocks, when you use them in that manner, you don't talk about needing more plumbers for 18 months. Fourth agenda item is customer and employee headlines. Now, this is where the good news and the bad news as it relates to business are shared. Again, this is only 5 minutes, but by going around the room and getting the good news and the bad news with everybody on the team, you've got an opportunity to put issues and potentially rocks into this meeting structure. Fifth agenda item is a to-do list. A to-do list is items that need to be done in 7 days. And only one person can be tied to that to-do. And if the to-do is not done in 14 days, it becomes an issue. I can't tell you how many meetings I ran when people would have some takeaways and some to-dos, but because we were not tracking it in a very easy manner and assigning somebody's initials to it, how many times those things did not occur. So just the fact that people say it to their group of peers, it goes on a list, their initials are attached to that to-do, we found that the vast majority, I'd say 80% of them were done in 7 days. The ones that were not done in 14 days went on to our issues list. So again, reviewing the to-dos, it's either done or not done. Not a tangent as to why it's not done, either done or not done. And then really the meat and potatoes and the most powerful part of this meeting structure was IDS. It's a 40-minute section of the meeting, which stands for identify, discuss, and solve. I found that we were pretty good at identifying issues and discussing issues, but the solving is what we were falling down on. That's how things kept coming back, meeting after meeting after meeting. And so it goes into a much more detailed explanation of this IDS process in the book. But the basic premise is all of the issues that the team has brought to the table get captured here in this issues list. And I think when we started, we had about 17 issues. And the rule of IDS is, in this 40 minutes, the team must vote on, out of those 17 issues, what's the most important issue we want to try to tackle? And the way you tackle an issue is to assign a to-do or assign a rock. And so if the team agrees out of all those 17 issues, issue number 7 is the most important issue, that's the one you work on first. If that's the only one that you get through in 40 minutes, that's okay. You're spending the group's collective time on the most important issue to your team. If you happen to solve that most important issue in 20 minutes and you have 20 minutes left, you go to the second most important issue. And the rule is after 40 minutes, we're done. And we pick up next week's staff meeting. And the last part of the meeting is the conclusion. You recap everybody's to-dos, discuss if there's any cascading messages that need to go to the greater organization. So in my case, I have 50 people. I have 15 that attend my weekly meeting. So we decide what, if any, messages need to get out to the other 35 people that don't attend the meeting. And then the people that are present at the meeting go around the table and score the meeting. And again, if that average score is not an 8, the meeting gets tweaked until that you accomplish an average score of an 8. I think it took us 6 weeks to get an average score of 8 and above. You know, it's funny, I've given this speech before, but never via Zoom. So it's hard to gauge, you know, how the message is landing. But my hope is that everybody can see this is a very simple, methodical meeting plan to follow. And I would absolutely suggest reading the sections of the book that cover this meeting structure. But the magic and the power is when the team really engages, they start to knock out their to-dos, they start to execute on their rocks, they start to flush out the issues that are very important to the company, and they feel like they have ownership of this meeting. In fact, it was about 7, maybe 8 weeks into this meeting where it was decided I was not the best person to run the meeting. And so one of my employees, Jeff, ran the meeting, and the meeting got better when I stepped out of the way and let him run the meeting. It was just fascinating to see the employee engagement and the ownership that was being created by the entire team. Because when somebody had an issue or a to-do or a rock that was assigned to them, they took that really, really seriously. And not that it was the same employees, so they always had that passion, but you know, I never gave them the opportunity to take full ownership and have complete autonomy to work on and solve these problems. You know, as a manager or as an entrepreneur, to my team's detriment, I tried to tackle these issues and stewed on them and ruminated on them much too much, you know, relying on my own thoughts. And there's other elements to the book that, as you read it holistically, I implemented some other key areas, but this meeting structure for me was the most satisfying because it really, really increased that employee engagement. And not only did it increase employee engagement, but we were actually solving problems. And it freed me up to go hire more employees, go get other sales, and you know, work on the business instead of working in the business. So that is what I wanted to walk you guys through this morning. And I'm going to stop sharing. If I can.
Actually, can you scroll down again to that
Sure.
IDS area? Do you mind if I snap a picture?
Yeah, absolutely. And I can email this out.
Oh, okay, great.
As well. Itamar, you must.
And by
have-
the way, I'm in a plumbing company. I don't know what you do. Plumbing and HVAC.
Yeah, we do primarily insurance restoration. But we do a little bit of everything. So absolutely love to get your contact info. You guys are the hard ones. Well, a lot of things are difficult and challenging in construction at the moment, but plumbers are always good to know.
Ken, can you go back to the scorecard? I think it's the second piece in the meeting. It's
Sure.
the agenda piece.
Mhm.
So what do? You just go around the room and just give a number to, how does that work?
No. So to build a scorecard, you need to figure out what the most important things in your business to track are. Mine were not too different than most companies: sales, revenue, cash deposits. I also tracked the variety of lead sources that we got. I tracked 3 or 4 other KPIs, but the most important: sales, revenue, and deposits. And so when we built this scorecard, we were pulling from our financial system, and we chose to separate all those goals into year-to-date metrics. So if our goal was to sell $520,000 a year, every week we better sell $10,000. So in week 17, the company goal was 170,000 in sales. Are we above or below 170,000 in sales? We also did the same for revenue, because sales without production in construction means you're building your backlog, but you haven't actually produced anything. So we tracked our revenue. Then we also tracked our cash deposits, because sales with production without collection cash, then I have a big problem with Itamar when I'm trying to get loans and things like that. So building the scorecard is a chapter in the book in and of itself. So in the meeting, we would just, sales on track, revenue off track. If revenue is off track, it instantly goes to an issue. Collections on track. So the scorecard component of the meeting is to run through your KPIs. And if they're off track, they have to go onto your issues list.
So then, if, for instance, if revenues are not where they're supposed to be, or collection is not where it's supposed to be, then it goes to the third agenda of the meeting, or does it go into the meeting next week?
It goes to IDS. So it goes to the issues list here. And then the team needs to decide, is revenue off track the most important issue that we're dealing with? Or is some other issue more important to that? So it goes to the issues list, and then the team decides if that's the most important issue facing the company. And that would go for any other KPI that's off track. It goes to the issues list, but it only gets identified, discussed, and solved if the team feels like that's the most important issue that needs attention.
So the IDS list is created this week, not the week before. It didn't come to this Excel spreadsheet from the week before.
It's a living list. And so as you solve your issues, my business coach actually implemented this. This is actually where I got the idea for the book. And they come off of the issues list. He put them onto a solved issues list, because he said in 9 months, his team solved 120 issues, and they were exhausted because they kept throwing more issues onto the issues list. And they said to him, geez, we're not really accomplishing anything. He said, oh, by the way, we are. Look at this solved issues list. And they went back, and he said it was such a morale booster to look at the 120, he had about 40 employees. Look at the 120 things we solved at our weekly meetings over the last 9 months that we don't talk about anymore at a weekly meeting. And the team was like, whoa. So it doesn't say that in the book to, keep a track of your solved issues list, but that was a powerful thing that we implemented as well. Again, my business coach did it in his business, and it was really cool. You forget about the things that were nagging and that you solved, and you look at that list and you go, wow, we never talk about blah, blah, blah anymore. And so any issue that does not get solved stays on the issues list and rolls forward to the next meeting. The next meeting, if some KPIs are off and they're not on the issues list, you keep building to the issues list. You take away from the issues list when you solve things. And it just is amazing. It becomes really fun when the issues become to-dos and rocks. And when the to-dos and rocks are done, they're out of your company. They're solved.
Can you, that kind of brings up my question, but can you expand a little bit on the difference between rocks and to-dos?
Yep. So a to-do is intended to be done in 7 or at most 14 days. If it can be done in 7 or 14 days, it doesn't have to necessarily go on the issues list. It's a to-do, it's important, it's going to get done. A rock is intended to be done in 90 days. And those are above and beyond your day-to-day things that you would typically do. They're tasks, projects, and it should be noted that no one person can have more than 5 rocks. It's preferred in the book, it says 3, but if you give people 3 bigger ticket items that need to be done over a 90-day time period, what we found is that those back burner items that really shouldn't be back burner items actually get done. So one of my rocks right now is fill our second open business development position. Okay, sounds easy to say or do, but I made it a rock, and if I don't do that in 90 days, I let my team down because I did not fill that position. And as the leader or a manager or an owner of a business, it's so easy for 90 days to go by and not to do something as concrete as fill an open position. And so giving myself that rock, I have to tell my team if I'm off track and not going to do it in 90 days, I'm off track. And psychologically, it's a powerful thing. And I find myself going, oh man, we have our team meeting on Tuesday. It's Thursday. I didn't call that candidate back for a second round interview. Let me call them now. So for me, it's sometimes when you're the boss, it's the rock and my commitment to my team hold me accountable.
Hi there. I just want to go back to one thing where you had talked about issues. And when we have our team meetings, I would like to be able to define to the team what qualifies as an issue. So I know that you said it essentially comes down to the consensus of what the group agrees with. What is an issue that we want to address? Is an issue, like, what would define it? Is it something that goes past the 90 days? Is it something that's urgent, like it's a pain point for process?
Yep.
Could it just be something that's specific to the business? Because my concern is that I have a good team and we have a good relationship with each other, but sometimes I feel like what might be an issue to one particular person might not be a company issue. So I want to make sure that it's not, well, I think that this issue needs to be addressed, and we all kind of get sucked into, all right, let's just get it done. But I would feel good having a criteria like this actually defines an issue, and this is not an issue. This is a rock, or this is a what was the other one? Task or stone? I'm sorry.
Yeah, to do. Yep.
Terms. Okay.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And there is a process and procedure for sort of filling your issue list before you jump into your first meeting.
Okay.
And the way we ended up doing it was we loosely defined it. We just said to everyone put everything that you can think of onto the table. And then there's this exercise called kill or combine. So if everything gets dumped onto a list, and that list is 70 things, what you first do is look to combine, because you find that item 3, 23, and 57, that's really the same, we're driving at the same thing. So the first step was combined, and or if you look at something and the group says, no, not worthy of an issue, for whatever reason, you can kill it. So there was very much a process of building the issues list prior to our first meeting, and then ranking prior to that meeting, what were the first, second, third, fourth most important things. And once we started the weekly pace of these meetings, we ended up clearing up. It was amazing. I think we started with 24 issues. I think that 24 got down to 12 in about 4 weeks' time. And then what ended up happening is as we'd solve two or three would go on there. And so we hovered around 12 for probably about 3 months. And then we got it, after I stepped out of the way and Jeff started running the meeting, we actually got it down to about 2 or 3, at most 5 issues at any given time, because we got stronger and better at converting issues to rocks. And so the meeting, as it says in the book, you know, this is a new muscle that you're exercising as a team. It's going to take time, but the stronger you get at just letting go and following the process, the more issues you solve, the less you end up having. Sometimes you would get through a meeting in 25 minutes. Everyone got to say their good news, their good and their bad news, employee updates. You know, my to-dos are done, my rocks are done. It was great. In this meeting structure now, my organization's bigger, and I have one with 15 people, but then I have a separate meeting. I follow the same structure with this department. Then I have a separate meeting with this other department where we're following the exact same structure, but that helps these 2 different groups of employees get their issues and solve their issues, you know, independently of each other.
Now, the voting on the meeting or grading, or I forget how you worded it. How
Mhm.
is that done?
You go around and you say, Pam, what did you think of this meeting? I thought it was a 4. Joey, I thought it was an 8. Billy, I thought it was a 6. And literally, if it was lower than an 8, they have to give reasons and suggestions to make it at least an 8. And that was really powerful as well. You know, I think we got off to an average of about a 4, and people were giving their reasons why, and we're like, huh, good observation. Some of them weren't great observations, but, you know, very quickly, I think less than 6 weeks, we got it up to an average of an 8, and the team was looking around, they were like, how can this be? Like, how is this so much different than what we've been doing for 5 years? We don't get it. It was just hard to explain. But in less than 2 months' time, we got down to a powerful meeting that solved the problems that were good for the team. And one of the biggest things was getting the tangents out of the way. Tangents, not allowed. State your issue. Boom, thank you, it's on the list. You know, and really, the meat and potatoes is this 40 minutes. And to control the 40 minutes and not have tangents and really vote, hey, is this still the most important thing? Yes, okay, identify what's the root cause of the problem, not the symptom or the reaction or the tangent in the story. We already got that. What is actually causing this problem to happen? Identify it. Discuss. What are the possible outcomes? A, B, C, or D. Solve. Pick which one you're going to go with, A, B, C, or D, and go with it and assign it to somebody either as a to-do or a rock. I should say, because it would be, and I should have said earlier, it's unfair not to mention this, I hired a traction consultant to help us implement this. My business coach did not. Some of my employees had actually read this book in a previous company. That company chose not to hire a consultant to help them implement these things. I don't think I think we would have got the same result, but I don't know that we would have got there in 6 weeks had I not hired this consultant to actually get us to really implement it. He sat in on the first 2 meetings only. And again, that was a very helpful to our group.
Now, do you tend to break rocks down into to-dos?
So certainly you can. The more you define it, and again, there's a whole section on what's a good rock. Brings me to something I forgot as well. The team needs to vote that that is a good use of a rock. You know, Billy just can't say, you know, I want to accomplish blah, 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 blah in the next 90 days. If the team doesn't agree that that warrants a rock being assigned to Billy, Billy doesn't do that over the next 90 days. And again, there is a couple pages in the book that just says, you know, hey, here's the framework of how you create a rock.
And I have a question as it pertains, and I'm loving this information, as it pertains to the ownership of the rock. Let's say the person cannot handle it at the moment. Can you pass the rock? Do you have to go through the whole process of, you know, voting who, you know, because I understand the person can have ownership of it, but can the person pass it along? Can, you know, what ability or, you know, where's the open door with that? You know,
Yeah, so-
you just
so
don't want one
only-
person holding on and nothing's being done. So what can a person do in that regards?
Yeah, so only one person can be the owner. And if they can't, for whatever reason, execute on it, then it probably should be assigned to somebody else. And then that gets into a whole other topic of the book. Do you have the right people on the team? Because at the end of the day, really what this, so the meeting is one of several facets to making sure you have a powerful team. And if it truly was just a bad rock and should have never been assigned to that particular person, that's one thing. But if the person's just too busy, that's not acceptable. To be on our team, you're capable of this rock. It's important to the team and you need to get it done. And it's not on that person to do all the work. They're the keeper of the rock. It may be 2 or 3 other people on the team help execute things to get it done. But at the end of the day, they have the ownership. Either it got done or it didn't. And succeeding or failing is on them, the owner of that rock. Again, not to do the work themselves necessarily, but to be the captain and make sure that it gets done.
Now, do you have different goals for different departments that they do their own kind
Yeah,
of?
the scorecard can be changed for different departments. Some key scorecard metrics are universal, right? Sales, you know, deposits. Some safety, for example, makes no sense for my admin staff to worry about safety, where safety and workers' comp, you know, situations are highly important for my field people. So absolutely can be different scorecards for different. And or what we decided to do when we were 10 people was keep one scorecard, but add safety to it. Now that we're a bigger organization and we need multiple meetings, the safety scorecard is not on the sales scorecard.
Now, how often, I'm sorry, Ken, I have another question. How
Sure.
often do you have meetings based on your 7 points? Because I know some companies, they have it once a week, bi-weekly, every day. So how often do you have your meetings?
Yep, this is intended to be a weekly meeting and no more than 90 minutes. So the goal and the objective of this meeting is to get through these 7 points in 90 minutes. As we got really good at it, again, sometimes we had a 25-minute meeting. We're at 200% of all of our goals. Nobody was getting hurt. It was like, pinch me. This is unbelievable. Then all of a sudden something might happen. Somebody gets hurt, somebody quits, somebody sues us, and then all of a sudden the meetings might get back to 90 minutes. But the cool part of even that was the team understood now why we needed to invest the 90 minutes, because we were dealing and solving bigger issues that, we wanted to get back to the 25-minute meeting, but we still graded the meetings as a 9 when they took 90 minutes, because we knew as a group it was an effective use of everybody's time solving an issue that was absolutely healthy to solve for the company. And again, I thought I could only run the meetings as a 7. The group definitely got my average to an 8, but when Jeff was running the meetings, I'd say we were like a 9.75. This guy just, for whatever reason, this structure clicked with him, and he ran a great meeting, like really good.
Have you ever experienced, after you have your weekly 90-minute meeting, have you experienced where you have to have like a on the spot, listen, I need everybody for a quick 10-minute meeting, even though I had a 90-minute, but something came up, an issue or whatever. Have you ever experienced that within that week?
Yep.
And how would that intertwine with what you did within 90 days?
Yeah, so they have a meeting called a personal issues session. So I just did one like 3 weeks ago with one of my employees. I literally had the book open and said, hey, we got to talk about this. And I literally just followed the 5 or 6 things on the page to, I'm a good visionary and I'm a good leader, but I'm pretty terrible at actually holding people accountable. It feels uncomfortable to me. It's overwhelming. I prefer to be, a visionary and rah-rah cheerleader type. So what I find by just flipping to the pages in this book and just going like this, it takes the emotion out of it for me, and really allowed me to definitely be a better manager and leader. And they definitely have a section. It's literally a 1.5 pages on that personal issues meeting, whether it's one or a handful of people, and I just follow that. But it very rarely comes up now. I've been doing this for 1.5 years. And I sold my company to a national company in July. And what I thought was so cool was that the board, so it's based out of Denver, and I was walking around the Denver office. This book is on half of the executive's desk. So this company has 1,200 employees, 41 offices, 600 million in revenue. And so when I say this is scalable and it works, it worked for me at Integrity as a $5 million business, and it works in a $600 million business. One of the things I was nervous about is they have a staff meeting that is different than this. And I never deviated. After they bought my company, I kept running it like this. And I had one of the board members in my office 2 weeks ago and had him sit through the meeting. And when we debriefed after, I said, I got to tell you, Dan, I was a little nervous because I've sat in 3 or 4 other offices meeting and it doesn't work for me. I'm not going to have a 3-hour meeting that's unproductive, that people go on tangents. I just stuck to this. What do you think? He goes, you guys run a great meeting. It's crisp. Don't change a thing. And honestly, I was really nervous that he was going to say, hey, you got to conform more and you've got to run your meetings like the other offices. And because of, I had a little ace up my sleeve, this book was on Dan's desk, so I knew he believed in it. But I was having anxiety like 3 weeks ago, having him sit through my meeting, but it was passed with flying colors. So
How do you stop the tangents? Because we implemented weekly meetings about, I think it was 6 weeks ago. And I kind of did something similar to this, but I've been picking my own things to put in there. And then people kind of talk different things about those subjects. And I try to pull them back.
it's educate them what a tangent is. And then the book suggests you just say tangent alert, and then people just stop talking. It's crazy. It's It's insane. Just a tangent alert. And what are you trying to get at? You have 10 seconds. Again, like that, I never led or managed like that. I would have just let people talk and say what they wanted until they were blue in the face. And then I'd come out of the meeting going, I'm going to hear about all these things again next week. You know, and I had a really, I mean, I had a successful business. I would pinch myself going, how have we been on this 5-year run so good? And then when I started to implement these things, I was like, man, I can't believe I had a good, like now that I had a different way to sort of run meetings, it sounds corny, but it really changed my management abilities and style. And that's what I did. Tangent alert, exactly what it said in the book.
Were you actually guilty of tangents yourself until then?
I never was. I was always pretty good at hitting key points that were healthy and good to talk about. I probably was more long-winded because I wanted people to understand what I was saying. So I didn't struggle with that, but most of my team did. And what you find is that all the other team members hate it. They don't like anybody, you know, the only one that feels good about it is the one that's going on and on and on and on. Everybody else is sitting there going, get me out of this meeting. Or they're looking at their phone, they're doing emails, because you're wasting their time. You know, and at $500 an hour, I just, you know, it doesn't make sense. It's not fair to waste those people's time either. They could be spending 90 minutes at their desk getting work done.
Yeah, Ken, one of my questions is around, I have a colleague who they work part-time and they're extremely efficient. So the time that we would have a meeting like this, that's 90 minutes, it would be it would basically be their shift because they have a split shift. So they'd be coming in for a meeting and then having a very short amount of time to maybe start executing on something that might already be in progress. Do you have any recommendations in terms of if maybe they don't need to be at that meeting or
Yeah, what you can do is you can share. So once you fill this, and again, it doesn't have to be Excel. We just chose Excel. I think if you share this with them, you know, they can get up to speed pretty quick. Okay, here's the scorecard. On track, off track. To-dos. Sally's doing this, Tommy's doing this, you know, just even having a filled out meeting agenda. In our meeting agenda, you know, if we were looking at ours, you know, all of our issues would be here. Our to-dos would be listed here. You know, our rocks would be down there. So I think you can get somebody up to speed relatively quickly. And if they feel like there's an area that they can jump in and work on, great. If they're up to speed and doesn't pertain to them, you know, no big deal. They do whatever they're, you know, supposed to be doing.
okay. So I see the way that we're breaking down the work. This week we are kicking off a new workflow process. Does this traction program have a recommended workflow system beyond what you're explaining? And I'm asking in the event that it's something that I may need to migrate to. I wouldn't want our team to start out on one thing and I'm learning about this particular approach and then decide to move it over at some point. So are there things that I should look for that you'd recommend from this system?
Well, from this meeting system, it's translatable to any environment. And the reason why we ended up choosing Excel was because it was super easy to, you know, just track. But I took this from a $10 million company to now my office is on track to do 30 million. We've ramped up insanely since I sold in July, and this works. So in terms of the meeting structure, I think that translates no matter what process or procedure or IT systems you're using. In the book, there is definitely a section that talks about, you know, in my case, I'll say the blue sky way. And there is a whole art and science to developing a process and making sure that the process is smooth, efficient, and then most importantly, once it's complete, followed by all. And if you do tweak a particular system in your company, and you have a new throughput, and it is a smart and logical throughput that works, it will only work if it's followed by all. And I have got 60 to 70 hours a week practice of that, because so when I sold my company in July, they also bought my mentor's company in Carver on the same day in July. And we fused the two companies together and became Blue Sky all on the same day back in July. I had known 10 of 24 of those, actually I had hired 10 of the 24 employees that were still there. So I've been doing exactly what you said. My meeting structure is one thing, but I've been looking at integrity systems, looking at Rebuildex's systems, learning how Blue Sky wants us to do systems, creating a throughput, and then making sure the most important part is followed by all, because I have two employee groups that came together. And again, our run rate is tripled in a set. I mean, I don't know that I've got a lot more practice at what you just said than I ever thought I would have in my life. And I just kept going back to, okay, the Blue Sky system was already built. So I more had to morph my two companies' systems into the Blue Sky system, which was somewhat easy, but then getting people to follow it has been the exhausting part. You know, people want to do what they used to doing and what they think is better or faster or smoother. And the energy that I've been spending is the followed by all, followed by all, followed by all.
Thank you. This is great.
Sure.
This was fantastic. Very, very important information.
Thank you. I get nervous because I am not a professional speaker by any way, shape, or form, and I have to report back to my Zoom teacher. I feel like I did about half of what she taught me, so it's harder than you think once they teach you how to be good at Zoom. It's
But you did a great job. Thank you so much. Very clear. Excellent job. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
And you said you're going to go ahead and email this out, correct?
Yeah, Itamar, do you have the people's email that are in the chamber?
We do.
Pam can share it.
We do. Yep, I will be
Yeah.
sharing it.
Okay. Thank you.
Chamber though, can I still get it?
I'm sorry?
I'm not part of the chamber.
Yes, you can still get it, yes.
Okay, thank you. So if I'm understanding correctly too, this also becomes your meeting minutes.
It does. Yep.
Okay,
And the person running the meeting is not supposed to be the person that's got control of the Excel. You know, I do that now, and that's one thing I need to, actually, I got to stop running the meeting. There's got to be somebody that can do it better. And unfortunately, Jeff runs New Hampshire for Blue Sky now. So because I'm in the St. Louis office today, Amy from my office is running our meeting actually right now. So I'm going to get the team's feedback, and when I get back, she may be running the Tuesday meetings.
I think if there's no more questions, I think we can give everybody a few minutes back to your day.
All right, awesome. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
And
Ken,
thank-
thank you so much.
And thank you very much. That was very informative.
Sure, anytime. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank
Right.
you. Have a
Thanks
good
so
day.
much. Great job, Ken.
Thank you.
Good job. Thank you.